Yo everyone, welcome to my predictions of UFC Fight Night Perez vs Taira. This video will cover the full card starting from the first prelim fight going all the way to the main event. The first fight of the card is Josefine Knutsson vs Julia Polastri. Is it Knutsson? If someone can let me know in the comments, please do. This is a hard one to pick, guys. I think I'll be going with Josefine Knutsson though, and here's why. Both girls are great in the stand-up, but Josefine throws the straighter and more sharper punches, and I favor that especially when Julia Polastri is the type of fighter that pushes forward and tries to use her relentless pressure to get respect on the feet. Polastri does hit hard, and she is quite technical in close range, but I can see Josefine being able to frame off of Julia Polastri. She does like using an elbow frame when people are in close range. And with this against Julia Polastri, when she's trying to close the distance and have these exchanges with her, I think she can also use this and clinch up to potentially get herself a trip against the cage as she likes to do. This is a very close one, I'll be honest, but I'm going to go with Josefine Knutsson to win via a decision or potentially a later rounds finish. And we move on. Melquizael Costa versus Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. Man, I'll be honest, this is a tricky one. This is kind of like a striker versus grappler matchup, and the reason I say this is because Melquizael Costa does have the better striking. He has nice kicks, especially a really nice consistent front kick to the body, but he actually does have quite a few submissions and does try to jump for the back take. And Shayilan Nuerdanbieke has great grappling, fantastic double legs, good ground control, but he also is a powerful guy with bombs in his hands, and he has solid timing as well. Both guys lost their last bout to Steve Garcia, and both guys actually had their chances in that fight against Steve, especially Nuerdanbieke, who rocked him with a bomb of a right hand in the first. Anyways, to get back on track here, what are the most likely outcomes here? I think this fight most likely goes to decision, and it's going to be between Nuerdanbieke's ground control over Melquizael Costa's distant management and takedown defense. This fight's super close. I think if Nuerdanbieke was just a little bit more aggressive with his hands and just a little bit better with his chain wrestling, I think I would have picked him pretty easily, but I just don't think he shows enough activity in his strikes for me to pick him, and he can easily lose decisions because of this. I'll be going with Melquizael Costa to win this fight by decision, and I think he'll be able to keep this fight standing for the most part, stuff the takedowns of Nuerdanbieke, and get the decision win by keeping a distance and attacking his legs and body with kicks. They do both get hit a lot, and there's also a chance that one of them gets a flash knockout in the first or the second, but anyways guys, we move on. Jeka Saragih versus Westin Wilson. I'm picking Jeka Saragih to win this by first or second round KO. It's not like Westin Wilson's not dangerous. The guy has some great submissions and he's super tall for the division, but he just seems completely defenseless when it comes to his striking defense. He gets clipped way too much against opponents that have forward pressure and are explosive with their entries and strikes, and Jeka Saragih seems like he's itching to add the third KO loss in a row for Westin Wilson in this fight. Jeka Saragih's just too dangerous on the feet. The guy's pretty much a KO monster at this current time, and the only concern I do have for him is that he does prefer fighting on the back foot, so he's not as aggressive on the front foot. I could also see Wilson getting some sort of standing guillotine or Das since he's just so lanky and long for the division, but I still gotta go with Jeka Saragih here. We move on. Carli Judice versus Gabriella Fernandes. I actually really like Carli Judice's style, especially the willingness to lead and use her elbows in close exchanges. She had a great back and forth fight that she lost against Onesta Karakide, but very close. Showed a lot of heart, grit, determination to keep pressing. The problem is that Gabriella Fernandes is a strong and explosive fighter who will have the strength and speed advantage going into this fight. Gabriella's lost her last two fights, but got out grappled to a decision loss on both of them, and I'm not sure Carli Judice has the same grappling style that Gabriella's last opponents have. I can see Gabriella staying on the outside, keeping this on the feet and being able to hit Carli Judice with some nice shots, potentially TKOing her in the later rounds since Carli Judice tends to get hit a lot as she entries and pressures her opponents. This is a pretty close one though, but I will be going with Gabriella Fernandes by decision win or late rounds TKO, but I could see this going the other way as well. We move on. Jimmy Flick versus Nate Maness. Jimmy Flick has got some decent kicks, but his best chance in this fight is being able to latch up some submission on Nate Maness and take him to the ground. Nate Maness has got out grappled and lost the decision to Umar Nurmagomedov, but that's Umar Nurmagomedov, so not much to really say there. Nate Maness might be too much for Jimmy Flick in the stand-up, and I think he will most likely just put a beat down on him in this fight, especially if he decides to destroy Jimmy Flick's legs like Alessandro Costa did in their fight together. So for this fight, I'm going with Nate Maness by decision win or later rounds TKO. We move on. Tagir Ulanbekov versus Joshua Van. guys, I'm worried for Joshua Van in this fight. I think if Taira decides to take him down and control him, I can see Taira Ulanbekov winning a comfortable decision, or maybe a later round submission over Joshua Van. The only loss of Joshua Van's career was not too long ago, and it was by submission. He was scrambling like crazy in that fight. Scrambles overall were quite solid though, but could not defend the takedowns well enough and gassed out completely by the middle of the second round. If Joshua Van can keep this standing, however, I could see him clipping Taira since he's definitely quite hittable, but I just think Taira will be well aware that Joshua is dangerous and will get a takedown early in this fight to establish the pace of the fight. I like Joshua Van though, and I do hope to see him win, but I'm going to go with Taira Ulanbekov to get this done over Joshua Van. We move on. Josh Quinlan versus Adam Fugit. I think Josh Quinlan can get this done by TKO finish in this fight. I really do. I think he's got pretty solid takedown defense. He's based in BJJ as well. I don't think Adam Fugit will get him down to the ground much this fight unless he hurts him on the feet. Adam Fugit just doesn't look sharp on the feet to me, and he's not super defensively sound when it comes to his striking. And on the other hand, Josh Quinlan is more explosive, athletic, and a more powerful guy in general, at the very least, as far as I can see. So I give the greater chance to get the finish of these two fighters to Josh Quinlan. So overall, I think Josh Quinlan gets this done, guys. We move on. Now onto the main card, Brady Hiestand versus Garrett Armfield. I think Garrett Armfield wins this one pretty easy, guys, to be honest. I think Brady Hiestand has decent kicks, but he looks a little too unpolished on the feet at this current time. He relies on takedowns as well, and someone like Garrett Armfield has nice takedown defense and has pretty decent cardio as well. He went 3 full rounds with Brad Katona and won a decision, which I thought was impressive since Brad was applying a lot of pressure in the stand-up and he was constantly trying to take him down as well. I think Brady would lose to Brad Katona the same way as well, so it's pretty hard to favor him in this matchup. I think Armfield will expose him for a dominant decision win because of the major stand-up advantage that he has in the boxing department. So that's my pick, and we move on. Asu Almabayev versus Jose Johnson. I'm going to start off with this, guys. Jose Johnson is 6 feet tall and is fighting in the flyweight division. There is no way he's going to be able to maintain the strength he needs in this fight to fight off the grappling onslaught Asu Almabayev has for him in store. I honestly don't know how he makes weight for this fight, but it must have some sort of effect on his performance. I think this was a pretty quick decision for me. The only chance Jose Johnson really has is to catch him on the feet as well. And Jose Johnson has lost a few of his fights in the past due to grapplers working their way into submitting him. So I'm going to go with Asu Almabayev by dominant grappling decision or a rear naked choke in the 3rd round. We move on. Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Miles Johns. I think Miles Johns is actually the favorite going into this fight, but I really have not liked his most recent performances. Douglas Silva de Andrade can win a decision in this fight purely based on his striking output. I think Miles Johns would have seriously needed to up his striking to win this fight in my opinion, and I just don't think that's been the case. Both guys have pretty solid takedown defense, especially Andrade, so I don't think this will be going to the ground. So to finalize my pick, I think Douglas Silva de Andrade wins via decision. We move on. Timmy Cuamba versus Lucas Almeida. Man, Timmy Cuamba is super sharp on the feet, guys. Loves a solid 1-2 down the pipe and has some solid kicks too. I think I will be picking him in this fight against Lucas Almeida. He lost his last fight by a split decision against Balaji Oki, which is nothing to be ashamed of in the first place. But when you realize that this guy took the fight on a literal week from his previous fight, and it was up a weight class, I worry for Lucas too, since he's been finishing his last 2 fights and he got knocked out by Andre Fili with a nice 1-2 down the pipe, which is Timmy Cuamba's favorite strike, to be honest. So the guy's very good. He's young, he's hungry, and I think he gets this win over Lucas Almeida in this one. We move on. Ikram Aliskerov versus Antonio Trocoli. I don't know what's going on here, guys. Ikram Aliskerov should be winning this fight all day, every day, and if he doesn't, I would be shocked, honestly, and I would assume to see a bunch of Ikram Aliskerov fraud check videos be uploaded the next day. Antonio Trocoli hasn't fought in 2 years, as well as has fought around 6 times in around 8 years, which is super inactive. If there's any fight that should be a lock of the card on paper, it's this one for sure. Ikram is just way better in the stand-up and on the ground than Trocoli, so I'd be pretty surprised to not see a finish in the 1st or the 2nd round by Ikram Aliskerov, so I will be locking that in. And Ikram is just outside of the top 15, so he should be fighting someone like Chris Curtis or something, not a guy coming off the Dana White Contender Series. Anyway, regardless, moving on to the main event. The main event of the UFC Fight Night, Alex Perez versus Tatsuro Taira. I'm happy, thank you! If you guys haven't seen Tatsuro Taira's post-fight interviews, he says that literally after every win. He seems like such a nice guy, definitely someone you want to be rooting for, but this fight's definitely going to be a big test for him, and I'm afraid it could be a bit early in his career to verse someone like Alex Perez, especially a version of him that just KO'd Mateus Nicolau. Alex Perez is super solid, and even though he's lost his last 3 out of 4 fights, the 3 he lost were to Figueiredo, Pantoja, and Muhammad Mokaev, whose undefeated run is going on right now. So definitely nothing to be ashamed of. I can see a few paths of victory for Tatsuro Taira though, especially if he's able to smoothly take the back similar to what Pantoja did to Perez. I also think that Taira has improved a lot in his stand-up, and I don't think he should actually be afraid of the exchanges on the feet either. I also think he will have the grappling advantage, of course, in this fight, and he does seem to fire more often than Perez too, so I could see him winning a decision. This is definitely a close one, which is what you want to see out of a main event, but for this fight, I'm going to be going with Tatsuro Taira to win via decision or to get a submission in the later rounds. Anyways guys, that's it for the predictions. Let me know what you guys think about them in the comments below, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.